I think so, but let's take a look at that. We have to place that negative media, periods, there are epochs of the negative media, it comes and goes based on what technology is around us, what's going on in the world. And certainly the bioethicists, the machine ethicists, the ethicists that come in and try to push our thinking in certain directions based on maybe their moral theories or values. So let's take a look at one example, and I think this will set it apart. In the 1990s, transhumanism became very popular. And it was largely developed within the kind of the academic sector and the innovators, entrepreneurial sectors, largely in stemming from England with Max Moore into Silicon Valley with Eric Drexler and Marvin Minsky, and looking at MIT, the different universities that were involved. So when we look at the earliest ideas of transhumanism as a modern movement, we'd have to look at what was going on at that time. Well, computers were just starting to go onto the internet, so we started to get into encryption. Then personal identity became very important to think about because we were dealing with the machine and the zeros and ones and digitality. And then genetic engineering was coming into the marketplace, and people were learning more about biotechnology. And the acronym became known as NBIC, Nanobioinfocogno, which was used by many different political organizations, largely the George W. Bush's here in the United States Presidential Bioethics Committee, who claimed, and they were the first to claim, that transhumanism was the world's most dangerous idea. But let's break that apart, and here's where the explanation comes in. If you look at that committee, they were all white, male Christians. And they had a moral responsibility to their particular perspectives based on their moral theory of divine command. And the outpouring of that came into something called the X factor. And there is no X factor, that we humans have an X factor somewhere in our being, that if we were to do any type of gene therapy or modifications on the body, genetic engineering, et cetera, with biotechnology, that we would somehow remove that undefined, unseen X factor, and we would no longer have human dignity. Well, that is a far reach in the first place. So that's the type of arguments that got a lot of press in the late 20th century that sent out a bad public message about transhumanist thinking, transhumanist objectives, transhumanist agenda. And it's simply impossible. There's too many moral theories. You can't break it into just one based on your religion. But certainly I respect their views. It may not be my view, but I do respect their views, just like it's very important, and it is part of the transhumanist practice, let's say, to understand and respect diversity and multiplicity, that we're all different, but we have one common goal, and I think everyone shares it, to save the lives of our loved ones and our extended family. That's on our minds on a daily basis, especially during this COVID-19 period of the pandemic. We're looking at it as not just as individuals, we're looking at it as countries, as sectors, as continents, as a planetary ecology of health and well-being. And we're seeing some of our foibles. We're in this condition largely because we have not had more of a masterful understanding and control of our biology and its vulnerabilities. And an analogy there will be in cybersecurity, looking at network engineering. The goal of network engineers and technology forensics and cybersecurity is to do vulnerabilities testing, penetration testing, see where the vulnerabilities are in not only personal data, but in corporate data and governmental data. And that's what they do as a career, find those vulnerabilities and help patch them. We need to do that with our own cellular structure, through our own biology. So it got a bad name because of things like that, but it also, it was up against the postmodernist agenda in academics. And the postmodernist agenda was pushing the cyborg theory in feminist studies and in the social sciences and whatnot. Well, in academics, which is another area like politics that is very strident and it's like hitting a wall. In academics, the postmodernist agenda did not like transhumanism because It didn't understand technology. And most of those high-end postmodernist theorists and philosophers and academics had little knowledge, broad knowledge about artificial intelligence, robotics, automation, nanotechnology, genetic engineering, all the different concepts that are very mainstream today now in the beginning of the 21st century. So they said, no, transhumanism is bad. They didn't understand it. So they thought that the transhumanists just wanted to eradicate our biology and the human. And that's absolutely incorrect. The transhumanists early on and continue to be advocates for ethical use of technology. We use artificial intelligence to help us better reason and understand large data.